Greetings all there virtual explorers and survivors, thanks for clicking and welcome to a little introduction for a game called Among Trees. From what I understand, this has been out for a while on I think the Epic Store, and it came over to Steam just a few months ago. Past the initial menu screen, there's a couple of options, one for standard gameplay that involves hostile animals and other potential damage that can chip away at a health meter. The mode comes in a variety of easy, normal, or hard, but one can also opt for the Zen session, of which there are no threats. And just like that, we're in the woods with some leftover structure that's nearby. Gathering up materials scattered around will help get that cabin together in a hurry, so that we'll at least have a shelter. In this game, there are several meters down at the bottom of the screen to manage. Among them is temperature and overnight that requires that we get indoors. Another meter is health, which doesn't seem to move in my initial playthrough in Zen mode, but what does tick down over time is thirst, hunger, and what appears to be rest or sleep. Conveniently inside the cabin is already a bed after immediate construction, so you'll have a place to recover energy. There's also a desk with a save game mechanism and one storage chest to place items in. Thank goodness more come later because there's a lot that can be picked up and our bag isn't very big. Looking around the cabin, there are light-up displays that list the resources necessary to unlock these different described rooms. All but the Attic Storage Edition unlocks a new crafting ability from the basic workbench that has tool upgrades to cooking and sewing. Not only will the room appear while inside the home, the shape of the cabin morphs outside as well to reflect the remodel. Eventually there's a greenhouse edition that can be tacked on and will maybe start looking quite so much like it came straight out of the Evil Dead movies from the 1980s. The environment is actually very pretty. A lot of bright and vibrant colors, especially in the skies through the lighting changes over the course of a day. It's pleasant to walk through, but sprinting with the shift key is more effective when running around the fairly vast map on foot. While outcrossing rivers provides an opportunity to fill up on that thirst meter until you're able to craft a canteen from the workbench. Snacks to cure the hunger can be found everywhere. When looking at each one of the inventory, it will mark how much hunger it restores, raw or cooked, as well as the warnings for risk of poisoning. The game's included a number of ways to replicate threats that would exist in the wild, even minus the bears in this current setting. Quite often running back and forth due to full bags, and having to remember the approximate location of man-made wreckage where crates and boxes can be found. The reason these are key is because they contain nails, bolts, pipes, and more that are important in constructing the cabin rooms and tools needed. Spots seem to respawn some items every few in-game days so far, and it's allowed me to get through the initial crafting rooms open. The workbench inside has a craftable axe, a lockpick, fishing pole, and other helpful tools, so I recommend prioritizing the first bolts on that and the kitchen as well. Getting the quaint stove allows for processing things like mushrooms that could be poisonous into safe meals that are more filling as well. It just adds sticks to get it powered on. This is a good way to use up the excess sticks that you can find everywhere. With that achievement out of the way, the options for the greenhouse and brewing room now come up as the next goals to renovate in the cabin. It's a little easier to focus on the storage attic with the materials available near home. It also provides 4 more storage chests on a second floor that magically appear and will also contain the future sewing room, which I really hope that there's a bag expansion in that sewing table. After some more intensive gathering sessions, I made a fishing pole to test out the fishing in this game to see how it compares to other survival or gathering games that I've played. And it doesn't. It took a few moments to figure out how it works and to get the hang of it, or at least keeping the fish on the line. From the inventory, we can hotkey the tools to numbers 2 through 4, so it's right there on hand, and you hover over the water for casting. Picking a distance to cast is up to your strategy. Casting far away gives time 1 to reel in and attract the fish's attention, but the farther out they are, the more work it is to bring them back to shore. Click to reel slowly to drag and lure through the water. Nearby fish can be seen by their splashes, and shortly after you'll see a funnel meter pop up with 2 line markings. The task here is to keep the line tension up on the fish by keeping the meter reading between the 2 markings. How to do this involves 2 key things. The first is clicking the reel to keep pulling the fish closer to shore, as it requires holding the click button down. But if the line tension gets too tight, it can break. So it may require some spamming to avoid losing the line. But the second mechanic can balance the line tension by moving the fishing pole from left to right to fight against the fish's direction. Clicking and holding while somewhat wildly swinging the pole from left to right can wrestle the fish to land with enough determination and focus. Among Trees' version of fishing gives me some considerably more action in the game. A little combat-like action with my fishing, and that's pretty neat. Looting gives us fillets and bones separately, and the bones come in handy for crafting. The meat makes a great meal for your furry friend. Because on day 10, some forest magic happens. Upon waking up and having some breakfast, you'll find outside your door is a little fox that seems to be very friendly. They prompt us that they'll need to be fed every few days, and there's a menu wheel which can be accessed using the center mouse button. On this menu, it includes the option to give food, loves, or commands. The fox can follow you on your adventures and is just another charming part of the game. While looking around on your walk in the woods, there's also some harmless birds or rabbits periodically bouncing about. Very early on I discovered bees, which seem to only sting and cause minor health losses when near them. To harvest beeswax and honey, equip an axe. Running up to take a couple swings will knock this thing down, but quickly make a run for it, as an angry swarm will come flying at you and chase for about 20 seconds. Find your way back to the tree's remnants to recover the loot. When in Zen mode, there's not a lot to worry about. However, in the standard gameplay, it includes the extra hazard of bears. When coming into range with one, an eye graphic pops up at the top of the screen. Even if it's not immediately visible, you're not spotted yet, but you've tempted fate. And just to find out what happens when the bear does aggro, I'm gonna hang out here. Oh, well, it does nearly the entire health pool in one swing. But it also leaves you bleeding and steadily losing health over time. Unfortunately, with no crafting room open to create bandages, I died from bleeding, but I was able to reload from the last save with no real penalty other than the mats lost that were collected before I baited the bear. If you've got the crafting room open with the workbench, there will already be a pattern for bandages with the tab menu that requires some scavenge cloth to make. The first tab allows for collected resources to be forged into other pieces together for a crafting list for some more helpful objects found in the second tab that has all the tools. This tab also has the map, which then enables the M key function to pop up a window that shows your approximate location within the sizable open forest. As you pass through the zones, some new landmarks will appear that better aid in navigating to places you'd like to find again. It looks like eventually a tent is craftable from this bench, which in theory would allow us to do overnight trips that are further away from the cabin, and it makes sense considering how large the zones are. Another grayed out locked icon early on has to be a watering can for plants. It likely has to do with the greenhouse future remodel, because occasionally I've been gathering seeds from inside the boxes which need to have the lock picked before opening. To unlock the recipes, there are blueprints located throughout the map, many of which aren't too far away from the cabin and just require some exploring. Unfortunately, maps are not exactly the same, so the orange dot on mine may not get you to the exact spot, but the blueprints are likely somewhere close to that area. The first one to find for the pickaxe so that we can finally mine up the lime as a resource, look for the special map markers for the lime rocks and larch trees. These zones have specialized materials for both which are necessary for glue. It's the current barrier to opening the last few room extensions in the cabin, as I've had time to gather almost everything else. And I'm only at day 12. About 3 hours invested in the game so far. I don't really think it's going to take very long to have a full functioning home with all the amenities. Maybe a few more hours, but it might also have some additional life left in the exploration of the map. Plus, there's this whole extra tab in the crafting menu for decorations, and that's an extra time sink. I wasn't originally planning on it, but I'm gonna push through gathering long enough to get some clues so that I can at least preview for you what's in those other rooms to give a better look at what's available to do. Off to go hunt these large trees for resin by following the marked area on the map, and probably will be distracted by tons of items along the way. Lime is already checked off the list after visiting a large rock structure with an opening to a small cave. Inside are nodes that when a pickaxe is swung at them, it breaks loose a couple chunks of this glue ingredient. At least the whole little hike is a visually pleasing one with how lovely the forest aesthetics are. You can tell when you found the larch trees because they're a nice mix of yellow hues different from the common green. And when chopped down, they provide fir planks, sticks, and one piece of the resin. If not already collected, pick up some of the autumn leaves to finish up the glue. Combined with a whole lot of fir planks and assorted items, we'll get 2 more rooms opened. Curiosity got me opening the sewing room first to check its contents. The menu has both a clothing line and a backpack upgrade that I was hoping for, although the expansions are only by 2 inventory slots at a time. Style upgrades are going to provide extra cold resistance for the temperature when it starts to get a little cool. That's a cute jacket, too bad we can't see it on, but the game is all first-person perspective, which does make for some wonky camera movement while running. There's not a lot of game to play in relation to many of the gathering simulators that I've tried. There's not endless building options, but there's a small amount of entertainment here. So far the game's played without issue. The bear will give you more to do when playing in the standard mode, of course, and there's always the frustration of selecting the hardest challenge. Fairly sure that I have a lot of map left to go since there's still 1 room to unlock. Plus, the little guidebook found within the tab menu still has question marks in it that is listing off all the gatherables I've yet to locate, fish up, or mine. It's fairly good and worth a bargain price for the hours that can be gotten out of it for this kind of game genre if you're really into this kind of variety. There's no real story tying anything together, and perhaps this game was intended to be more than it ended up being, but it's not entirely without merit. The visuals are really pretty neat, as are some of the gathering mechanics like the animations on the wood chopping, or even just the detail that's put into leaning down to grab some water. The fishing mechanics added a nice bonus, and then there's the fox who can fetch stuff for you too. It's not super special, but it is soothing. It's listed as early access, but it's pretty much been confirmed as abandoned on further development. It's too bad, because I would have loved to have seen where this title could have expanded on. This falls into the decide whether or not it's worth your budget and time category. For more game reviews and creative building ideas for crafting simulators, stop by the channel. Back to gathering for me. I hope this was a helpful start to your expedition in Among Trees. Don't forget to feed the fox. Take care, y'all, and bye-bye!